do anything statistically with it. So I really limited myself to the means and to the clustering.
Yeah, just occurred to me, we said a job candidate who we're hiring, who's working on, I guess, the side where your credit is bad, which is he's working on exits from homelessness.
Okay.
And he has similar sample size, and he was using, in fact, since interviews, Boolean algebra, Boolean comparative approaches too, which also involve interaction, allow for interactions too. So that's one, one alternative. I'd be curious to see what the...
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I clearly recognize that, for instance, when I look at things like, the fact that it's government issued, and then another one of them is issue reliability. I suspect that those may be related. Maybe they think government is a more reliable issuer, but and there are methods which I did apply when you go through the repertory grid interviews to try and hone in on whether
relationships.
Yes, on relationships. But again, I didn't, I couldn't do anything further with it after the interviews because I just didn't have the sample size. So yeah, but you're right. I mean, there are certainly other kinds of analyses that I could do.
Yeah, I don't know how they're better or what. I just.
Yeah, but in terms of measurements, the measurements that I took really were the level of experience. I know the type of bank, and then the rating. I mean, those were the three basic measures that I took for each interview.
My first comment will be that following now, that is, your literature review doesn't exist that much.
I'm sorry, say again?
You didn't talk about anything of the literature review. You didn't question your research in terms of your existing research.
Okay, yes, okay, something, you're right. That's what Ram said.
But my main point I'm having is how to use this for so what? How to use this result? That's not clear.
Okay, yeah,
it seems like that you have now with some tables, some synthesis of results or something like that, but it abruptly ends there. Okay, so what? Okay, I say for example, I am a bank manager and someone came out with a document. Then how will I use this to judgment of
yeah, one of the things I think is the point that John made. For instance, this may have application for the regulators. Another one is that this may have applications for the people who are actually in the banks. One of the things, but you're right. I mean, I don't bring that out.
No, I'm not talking about where it can be specifying where it can be applied. I'm talking about how it can be applied. That part is.
Okay, so for instance, perhaps say to the regulators how they can set best practices, or saying this could be applied by making recommendations for what features identity documents should have. Is that what you're thinking of?
Like, what's the conclusion? What's the conclusion of this research? You have a table and a number.
Go to slide 24.
Sure.
Paraphrasing what I hear Kanye saying, and I also, potentially, there is yet another slide missing. We've been through this 3 or 4 times. And I keep adding slides and then we have to move, that's why the appendix got bigger and bigger. We had to just move some things out to the appendix. But there's still this slide, paraphrasing, and I heard it from Rama, and I heard it, yeah, it's positioning, and it's also what we went around on your chapter 7, and your chapter 7 still talks about a lot about the specific results that you got from your study.
Yes, right.
But there's the bigger thing of how the study, it's also what John was getting at, how this technique, I mean, if we look back at your, slide 1 is missing on the handout. Slide
It's
1,
in the front. It's on the front of the.
it's
on the very front of it.
How the result, I mean, what you're talking about basically as it says here, a methodology or technique.
Correct.
How this technique is going to change the way these examiners do their job. That, you know, what have you learned that will impact this kind of practice?
Yeah.
Is that a fair phrase?
Yeah, it has to go beyond just two numbers, the conclusion.
So what?
Yeah,
So
conclusion, okay, there are a lot of nice numbers, a lot of nice table and so on, so much, really. Someone reading at the conclusion document, there should be a 4 or 5 pages chapter, by reading at that document, someone should be able to take the vision. Okay, this is what I need to do, or this is what I need to change, that kind of thing.
That's the first attempt at best practices.
Okay.
That's sort of what you mean.
The positioning and the best practices, I mean, those are the two things that I'm hearing here.
Can I raise the issue relative to sort of the regulators, but again, the same thing. Bank of America invites you to their corporate headquarters and says, what's so important about your research for me running Bank of America?
how does it affect me?
Right, okay.
What should we do differently because of what you've learned?
One suggestion is, in your writing, if you look at chapter 3 of the book we're using in the course, the Indian Scholarship book,
Yes.
it has a little, the template, and it has all these things. It's almost like a checklist, because it tells you when you situate your problem, you situate it in the local and I think you've done a very good job of locating it in the local view, but also the bigger picture of
Right.
where this fits in the larger scenario. And then all of these issues come up there, the perspectives you're considering, all of those things are actually tied
Relationships with
together.
other
Right.
organizations and so on.
The Indian scholarship, we use
Yeah.
that in the philosophy of science course. So that's almost like a checklist, covers
So you
things.
talk about the Van der Ven book, yeah.
Oh. Okay, as I say, I'm gonna hold, I hear, audience still has questions. Audience, now I'm gonna send Kenneth out, you can ask Kenneth outside. So thank you all for coming, now we're
I
gonna.
has to make sure to turn off all the recorders.
All recording devices, all that. Leave the room. Thank you all for coming, and